Hey.
Hi there, hi there. Welcome, everybody. I have to acknowledge first off the bat, though, Diana, I'm having some feelings because the last time I went live was on a beach in San Juan, Puerto Rico. So,
Oh,
as much as
wow.
I love and adore
Yeah.
you, I'm
Yes.
also realizing I am in an office in Colorado and not on a beach in Puerto Rico, and I'm
Well,
a little sad.
we could just schedule every month to go to the Caribbean or Mexico or something and
I'm a
do this.
little the difference is kind of a lot,
Yeah.
and I'm a little sad, but
Yes.
but
Yes.
still happy to see you, obviously.
No, thank you. Thank you.
So I'm Tricia Broderick with Ignite Insight and Innovation,
I'm Diana Larsen at dianalarsen.com with AS House Consulting.
and we co-wrote Lead Without Blame, and we've been coming live now. We've been doing this for a while, once a
Yeah.
month. Partially because we just miss each other, partially because there's lots to talk about and engage, and it's just a
Right.
way to continue into the conversation in kind of an
Yeah.
unscripted format.
Right.
But we've been doing this now well
Yeah.
over a
Right.
year and stuff. So this is,
Yeah,
you know,
just so whoops. So I
oh,
guess I
great.
got it. Oh, no, that goes backwards. Oh no. Oh well.
I love it. I
That
also just
yeah.
love how many sticky notes are in your book with it.
Yeah.
It makes me happy. It
I
makes me, I
want to
took
remember this. I want to remember
Well, I
this.
saw somebody else that had sticky notes in their book like this. I was at an engagement, they were doing a book and they had all these sticky notes in our book, and I took a photo of it because it just
Oh,
it made
nice.
my heart like happy with
Yeah.
things.
Nice.
Even all this time later. So it's perfect.
Hmm.
And today's topic, I have to start off with a confession on today's topic already.
Okay.
Today's topic is deadlines. And I missed the deadline on Monday of posting this live.
Well, there you
And
go.
announcing the live, I got to today and started going, what do I have on my plate for today? And like looking through everything and got to this and went, I don't think I created the StreamYard for this. And I don't think I announced it. So it's only fitting that we are talking about deadlines as I missed one this week.
Right.
But
Yeah.
also still happened to still miss the deadline, but still beat the last responsible moment. So that worked
Yes.
out for me.
Well, yes.
Um, but we figure at end of year, lots of people have
Yeah.
tough timelines, hard dates, things along those lines, soft dates and stuff. And so we thought, let's dig into it.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little
Yeah.
bit
Right.
about this.
Well, and the classic software has to be ready for Christmas, right? I mean that deadline is just endemic in the software world. So for for certain kinds of software for products and things, but yeah. I mean, I think I've been missing a lot of deadlines lately. I will confess also. Um,
So,
because there's just been a lot going on in my life that actually has higher priority, not only than those deadlines, but higher priority than keeping track of those deadlines. And then my I use a Trello to do board, where I have scheduled things out in advance. And my Trello went wacky. I couldn't get into my Trello, and so
I
I
would
just
have a panic attack if that
yeah.
happened.
Well, I did kind of. It's working now. I had to get some help to make it work, but yeah, the pressure of deadlines and that sense of deadlines is so much a part of our lives now that I think it's a good conversation to have. When I mean, when it this is a little sensitive for me, but to say, but when because of a deadline does somebody actually die or something actually die? I mean, it's a misnomer. It's a target. It's something else. So even our language around it is kind of bizarre, really.
Yeah.
And um, and there are things that take priority over deadlines, and there are if you think about the things, I mean, if you use the Eisenhower quadrants, the important and urgent, um, deadlines make things urgent. Deadlines don't always keep things being the most important. And I think that's a distinction that we really have to honor. That there's things can happen in our lives that cause us to miss deadlines, and we need to give each other grace around that. I mean, you've been great for me these last few months when I've just been overwhelmed with a lot of more important than urgent and urgent things that have come up than the things that we were planning to do. Um, and I just had to make some other choices. And that's, it's important to acknowledge that. And it's also important to acknowledge that when we accept a deadline, we have a responsibility to let people know when we're going to miss it. That, for me, that was an early lesson that I learned just in business. I don't mind working with people who miss a deadline now and then. As long they're making most of them, but they miss one now and then. That's okay if they let me know. If I know far enough in advance, and that actually, there was an agile adoption I did once, that I was a part of once, where I was talking to the vice president about what he appreciated about what he was getting from this agile adoption. And he said it used to be we would come up to the deadline and then the team would tell me that they weren't going to be able to make it. And then I had to do the embarrassment of going and talking to the customer or whatever. He says now they will let me know 2 or 3 months in advance, and I can manage the fact that we're going to miss that original deadline and go figure out how to set another one. And I think, that communication about, yeah, we had this deadline, but it's just not feasible anymore, is so important. And I that's the kind of person I want to work with. Someone I can feel confident that they'll let me know if it's not going to work out, not that they're going to hit every deadline, because stuff happens.
You make a really good. I'm almost embarrassed to admit that I never really thought about the actual terminology. And as Khadija reminded me at Agile 2024, words matter, right?
Right.
And I used to always like, well, Patricia's a deadline, and we miss them all the time. And guess what? We set a new one, right? Like,
Right.
And so I now I say that, and I actually am somebody who really does value setting a deadline, setting a target. I partially value it, one, because it gives me a point when I'm going to do a check-in, gives me a point to when I can reassess or to determine where I'm at, or so I and if you go by, like, I don't know if you ever read When by Daniel Pink. He wrote a book called When, and he had a lot of research and things in there talking about how a lot of people respond to deadlines, and like there's midpoints and when activity starts happening in terms of creativity and things like that, and why buffers tend to not work, and all of that. And so it was really fascinating read, in the sense that I do think like a deadline helps me kind of overarching plan my time, right? Like, in balancing things and all of that stuff. So I am not like, well, you should just be able to do whatever you want, whenever you want, and when it gets done, it gets done. It's like, no, that's not, it's not feasible for clients. It's not feasible for organizations. And honestly, it's not feasible for people like me who really want check marks too. But also for my organization with stuff. But I do struggle when we put that false, like, pretend, like, this is, if we don't have this by this date, the world's ending. And it's like, no, it's not. And we've done it multiple times when it's not. And the problem is then once you're breaking that trust, we all know it, right? Like, we all know, but then we start playing really bad blame games or shit, like, and we start doing finger pointing. We start like, who's going to take the heat, or who's going to call, wolf first, and all of those behaviors is what makes us end up in a blame or shame environment, and not productive to what we're actually trying to accomplish, versus being transparent and calling attention to it.
Yeah, and a couple of other things about deadlines, not liking that term, is, it's an agreement that we make, but sometimes it's imposed.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're given a deadline, And that is an unrealistic gesture. I mean, if both parties can't say, yes, we could make this, then it's false from the beginning. And then the other thing, kind of aligning with what you said, is, you know, knowing when there are deadlines helps me to manage my time and helps me to know when I've already got too many deadlines for a particular period of time and I have to say no. I can't, if you want that by that date, I'm sorry, I can't help you. I've got too many other prior commitments. And so I'm not going to be able to meet that deadline that you want. Now we can always renegotiate, but it did. I mean, targets. What is a good
I
word
don't
for this?
know. I don't know. If
What is
somebody's
a
got
good
a good
word for this?
comment, put it in the comments for us.
Yeah,
Like if somebody's
right.
got a better word,
Yes.
because you're right. Now it's gonna
Yeah.
bug me for the rest of my
Yeah.
career.
Yeah. 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 But
Well,
knowing
we
which
just
ones
had.
I've already agreed to does help me manage the rest of my time.
We just had to do this with, I mean, we both adore comparative agility and what they offer and what they're putting
Right.
out there. And they had a request for us. And we were both, we didn't even sync up with each other, but we were both like almost independently at the same time responding with, we just can't right now. Like we
Right.
want to, we know the value, we see the value, we want to support, we want to
Right.
keep putting things out with comparative agility. We
Yeah. Yeah.
just can't right now.
Right. Right.
And in some ways, like I still felt bad,
Yeah.
but it was obvious that was the only choice I had in that moment.
Right. Right. Yeah. September, October, November, early December this year. Just no. Just there is no room for anything else. And everything that's happening has to happen. So yeah.
So you made a good point, and it is a reality point. Like, and
Yeah.
my name is Tricia Broderick, and I have done this, I'm sure, to people. So like,
Yeah.
I am not like
Right.
judging others, right, by any means. But it does happen frequently where people are imposed a deadline on,
Right.
and in some cultures, the power dynamic is not in a power with kind of situation as we talk about in the book. Instead, it is we cannot say no. That's a senior leader. Like we just have to do it. So
And it's just we just have to say we will do it.
Oh.
Because in that
Something
situation
always is going to happen.
Yeah, we still may not be able to do it, but we can't say so. And that forces us to be liars. And I hate it when I get put in that position where I'm forced to
Well, and I feel
lie
resentful about it as things
Yes.
happen and I
Yeah.
can't get it done because I
Yeah.
want to do a good job and now all of a
Right.
sudden I can't, right?
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So what do you suggest, like, do you got an idea? I'm putting you on the spot here right here, but we're unscripted, so game on.
Yeah. Well, there's this whole conversation that's been going on in some circles on LinkedIn about accountability. And what really is accountability, and are you accountable? And I mean, this has to do with, are you meeting deadlines? Are you showing up to do the thing you said you were going to do, or that I told you were going to do, whether you wanted to or not.
Which is why we went with responsibility more than accountability, because that already is like, I can feel myself like tensing up just listening to you right now.
Yeah. And so but it is associated with that. It's like, if I'm being held accountable, if you're going to ask me to count for what happened, and I have no control or none of the permissions to get things done, to make decisions. I have to rely on other people. It's, that's a no-win situation. And I think it's a huge leadership lesson to really think about, when are you putting people in no-win situations? And it's as simple as having a conversation. And we think that things will get done faster or more reliably or something if we just say, make it so, like, on Star Trek, make it so, right? Without checking in to see if that's really a thing that could happen, right? So it and so we risk we're what we're saying is I'm willing to risk disappointment later when it's going to be even more fraught when you can't meet this because I want to save time right now or whatever else, whatever other reason it is. I just want to make you accountable and walk away. Right. And that goes nowhere good in my experience. I mean, it's not the way to build learning environments in your organization. It's not the way to get resilient people. You get people who are looking over their shoulder all the time, and taking time to do that before they respond to a crisis. Um, yeah, all that.
So I play off of I say similar conversation, but I'm actually I go a little bit deeper in the sense of like I might highlight to people or what, if this were to happen to me or what I suggest for people is a couple things. One, don't just say no. Like that's now you sound obstinate, right? But explain why, right? And
Yeah.
so I once had a senior leader want a change made and I'm like, well, here's the other things they're working on. Here's what they cost the company. Here's those things. Which of these would you like to remove so we can do that or we could do it in the next. So give them the data to help make the right choice, right? And
Right.
prioritization or the deadline. Give them the data. And if you're like, well, I would give them all that information, they would still just tell me to do everything. Then you got some bad leaders and you should question what you're
Right.
following to begin with, right?
Right.
When
Right.
I've given that kind of information to my leader, there's somebody that I highly respect, or they're like, oh, wait, I'll just wait for that other, the next cycle or whatever. I'm like, thank you, right? Or they're like, oh, that does seem complicated. Yeah. And if they're like, no, you still have to do it, I understand it's gonna be hard. Then I can be transparent. I'm like, you've hired the best people. Every company says that we hire the best people. Well, part of being the best is being transparent about, I will give this my best shot. I will be transparent with you as we're going along. There are a lot of risks, and so we're going to update it along the way with those things. If it is still a just try, right, situation, then I increase that radical level of transparency going forward. But I don't pretend, because the problem is you made the great statement. It's like a great lesson for leaders, but the problem is it always reflects on the team members, the employee. Like it doesn't reflect on the leadership when it doesn't happen. It reflects on you, and then it gets blamed or you feel shame because you didn't deliver it and all these bad, and in the end it was a no-win situation.
Right. And that's why we wrote the book. Well, really, because
truthfully, I can feel myself getting ramped up, right?
Yeah. Well, and we both have intense feelings about this and intense opinions, but also, I want to find ways to help people to not get themselves in this situation, not get themselves tangled up in thinking you've got agreement when you don't. You never understand all the circumstances that somebody else is coping with. You never understand how much the other person understands of all the things that you are coping with. So conversations are so important. And sometimes conversations will just highlight how differently we think about things. And that's true.
It's information, though.
I had a professor one time who talked about the communication as elixir myth. That, communications don't fix everything. Sometimes they just highlight your differences. But even that is useful if you're willing to listen to each other and think through and what are the implications here, and what is really behind this target, what makes it more important than the other things on the list. I don't know that. You don't know the other things that I'm coping with right now unless I tell you. And it is unfortunate there are workplaces where those conversations are not encouraged and, in fact, actively discouraged, because it gets people in trouble. And it gets things missed that some people believe are important. and maybe it really are important, but how will we know? I mean, it's a similar thing to teams understanding how the work that they're doing fits in with the overall business direction. You know, if they don't have a clue about that, and they often don't, in my experience, I will go in and say, well, tell me more about why you're building this. We don't know. We were just told to build it,
VP
you
said
know.
so. Yeah.
And that, you know, those it I think part of being a really good leader, particularly a learning leader, is being having the courage to have those conversations, having the compassion to understand people may be under other pressures that you aren't aware of, having the confidence that you've hired the right people who will be transparent with you, who will tell you what's going on so that you can manage your expectations, and then understanding we live in a complex world. We just did another thing on the Agile Network on about
Wait,
that.
again, mic drop for the end, right? Oh, Diana, closing it out strong. You say she's on point today, people. On point. So
Yes.
we're at our time already, keeping these
Mm-hmm.
kind of tight. Where can people find you in the new year?
Oh my gosh. Well, the one thing I do know for sure, well, two things I know. I will be at the OOP conference in Munich in early February. That's a conference that's been going on for many, many years. I've been there once before, but it was a long time ago, so I'm really excited to go back. And then I will be at Agile Open Northwest in the early March. That's my favorite open space conference, and I encourage and people from all over the world come to it. So it's not just in the U.S. Northwest that you see people there. And then the third thing is in early April, I'm going to lead a Agile Fluency game facilitators workshop, which I don't do very many public workshops, but I'm doing this one. And we're doing an experiment with it where we are doing a pricing hierarchy using the diffusion of innovation curve. So if you're a pioneer and you want to come learn to do this game and you act early, you get a better price than if you wait and become an early adopter or yeah, so on.
I like
So
it.
that's our experiment. That's one of our experiments this
I
time. But
like
it's
it.
going to be here in Portland, Oregon. It'll be here in Portland, Oregon, at the Kennedy School, which is an awesome venue, and I look forward to seeing people there.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
I will be in Finland for Scan Agile upcoming, and I will also be at Innovate in Richmond, Virginia, in the first half of the year. I have two others, but I can't announce them yet, but they're coming. I'm waiting for final details on those. But I actually do have a number of upcoming public workshops. I don't usually have many of them, but I actually have a number of them, everything from like impactful training and speaking. So if you want to understand how to stop repeating yourself and be more like motivating, inspiring in your stuff, I have that coming up. And then I have our next that I do with Jake, that Leading Amazing Teams course that I do with Jake coming up as well. And then I have a couple little different like workshops, one on like conflict, one on change management, one on coaching. So just little bits to kind of start the year energized and learning and stuff. So I actually have quite a few public options coming up on the website in case you have, in either of our cases, in case you have year-end budget that you gotta look at it now. But otherwise, thank you for being part of my life in 2024, my friend.
Yes.
It's been a year, but I am looking forward to next year and continuing to dig into these conversations and continuing to see how we can help people lead without blame.
And when are we doing it in January?
Oh, good point. Let me double check. We just set this date. Nice job. January 15th. We normally try and do Fridays just because of our schedules, but we actually are going to pull off a Wednesday this next month.
Yeah.
Well, perfect. Have a great day, everybody. And happy holidays.